Hey, up YouTube, we are back for a new video with Rams fan YT. So here it comes again. Another time around in the season. Another time I need to be making predictions. Obviously, goes without saying, please no abuse in the comments, but constructive criticism or individual feedback, anything pretty much goes as long as it's not personally having an attack at me. You can disagree with my opinions, but having a go at my ability to know football probably should be left to the more darker side of the internet. Today we're looking at tier 6 or step 2 of the pyramid with the National League North and South. I'm now the president of the Non-League Society, so hopefully I know a bit more about non-league football. I'm going to start with the National League North. And in 24th, I've gone with Fastly Celtic. Fairly safe here. They've avoided relegation by the skin of their teeth last season for the second season running. So inevitably they're going to be around there again, I think. They last season had to rely on other teams to stay up. Therefore, I really can't see any other position except for the inevitable relegation, I'm afraid. 23rd, Southport. I'm still actually shocked about the decline of the Merseyside outfit here. I had to consider carefully and could be rash and so they'll be well clear. But you do need to have a look under the bonnet, really. It shows some severe problems going on at the club. They just survived last season, for example, and the fans are getting turned off with some of the worst attendances that we've seen in 30 years at the club. Last season could also be described as probably as the worst ever at the club, as stated by the manager at the end of the season. And this doomsday attitude will inevitably only end one way, and that's downwards. 22nd, Boston United. This one is actually a slightly stranger call, but there is actually a reason behind the madness. Their defence was one of the worst in the league last season, conceding 66 goals and was 6th worst in the division. The whole tactic of trying to outscore the opposition, this hasn't really proved fruitful this season, and it could be made much worse. I've seen so far they've lost 4 of their strikers, and they scored combined 25 goals. That was over 1/3 of their goals of the season just gone by. And the strikers brought in, they don't even come close to filling this void. Also, I don't know the budget of the club has at the moment. Much of the expenditure was spent over recent years on building their new stadium. And obviously the income from that new stadium has to have a knock-on effect a few seasons down the line. 21st got Scarborough Athletic. Either they will be promoted or relegated for me. There's no in between. I feel this side is Northern Premier League standard, and I know they almost reached the playoffs last season. But look at their side. Furthermore, they're in the worst position geographically, where it's a long away trip for fans anywhere across the country if they want to go and support their teams away from home. I just have a gut feeling that things will turn sour here, really. 20th, I got Bishop Stortford, another team with impossible travelling situation, and after really a solid month or so of complaining, they are still in the National League North, so where did that ultimately actually get them? You can see my video about when I try to rearrange the pyramid to make it a bit less travel for some of these clubs, but I'm predicting the National League North here, and that is key. Bishop Stortford not in the North, and this is financially ruinous for a club. So they won't be able to invest really because they have to save more money for the travel. And they do have to adapt to the new league as well. Also, the lack of fans away from home, I'm imagining, will become quite apparent. It's only if they make their home ground really a fortress will they finish safely. 19th, Blythe Spartans. This team may as well be called Lucky Blythe. As for some reason, every single season they seem to just scrape survival. No difference this season for me, but hopefully I will maybe come up and see them at one point this season to see how good or bad they really actually are. 18th, Buxton. Another team that I think did overperform last season, who also probably don't have that strong of a National League North team. Furthermore, there's been a lot of change in personnel since last season, with 8 players coming in already at this point of the window, and it looks like a great many more coming in. This will be to the detriment of Timo, because the success of last season, I think, was the really close-knitness of the squad, the teamwork, the ability to push each other on, really. 17th, Tamworth. The champions of the Southern League are no strangers to this level, really, of football, having last been in this league in 2017-18 and has spent 6 seasons of their existence at this level. Ultimately, the quality this season is, though, undoubtedly harder. There will be less points needed to survive, so I reckon they'll probably just have over 40 points, but still manage to finish 17th. 16th, Chorley. They have been challenging for the playoffs for years now, really. But the issue is this hasn't produced the goods, and players will probably think they're more ambitious clubs to join, really. Like if I was a top-end National League North Tier 6 sort of standard player, would I choose Chorley, or would I choose one of the other teams that potentially have more chance of nearby rivals? Fylde have just been promoted last season, and there's a few other clubs which you would maybe choose competing at a higher standard, really. And I don't think the budget is huge compared to similar clubs, really. I think mid-table will be roughly where they are due to the sneaking complacency within the squad as well. 15th, Gloucester City. Last season, I'm saying it was an absolute fluke. And I feel mid-table is more of an accurate depiction of where they will finish. They also have a new manager and a new squad, and that will take time to implement the tactics and squad cohesion. 14th, Rushall Olympic. A player that caught my eye while doing some research for this level is Alex Cameron. And to keep such a player and that momentum and close-knit bond between the squad will carry some unusual results, let's say, and shock the league to a mid-table finish. 13th, Peterborough Sports. I don't actually see the long-term goal of this club. They aren't looking upwards overly, but neither do they seem likely to be relegated. Off the pitch, there's a variety of concerns to highlight. One, the stadium is in dire need of improvement, which has been promised, but that will take much of the money out of the player budget, leading to the club still being semi-pro and therefore not being able to recruit National League standard players. And two, there are a lack of fans due to the fixture competition with Peterborough United. This can also have an impact on finances as well. Saying this, they are still on a wave from last season, doing much better than I expected anyhow. So it'll start very well, but drift to mid-table come the end of the season. 12th, Alfreton Town. They do usually reach the playoffs, but I just have a hunch this season it isn't going to be for the Reds. It won't be a poor season, but due to competitivity, I don't quite see the Derbyshire outfit being as competitive as some other sides which have really developed during the off-season. 11th, Warrington Town. Many of the players will probably hit the ground running, and that seems to be the tactics, with not mass recruiting, which is a danger when you get promoted. Certainly, I wouldn't mass recruit if I was to get promoted, because you're ruining the team spirit. And also, they are riding high on the promotion, but can carry a club much further than players can, especially positivity, where in a town like Warrington, there isn't a big club nearby to take all the fans like within the town, which is quite a big town. I know Warrington Rylands have been on the up. They could be in the National League North as well in a few seasons' time. But at the moment, I think Warrington Town has still got a traditional fan base. 10th, Curzon Ashton. I'm already seeing the makeup of a very different and a much more competitive team, with players with experience at various levels of the pyramid, but they're always like fighting towards the upper end of the table and league they were in. They aren't quite as good as some of the other sides, but I still see them as being very strong. 9th, Darlington. Oh, Darlow, what is in the makeup of this club that they fight so hard for about 2/3 of the season, and then they decide that they're going to capitulate and end up bottling the playoffs completely? Can I see any of this difference this season? Unfortunately, I must say not really. There's no change in management, with Alan Armstrong still being there, despite numerous bottle jobs. It's hard to see them not having the same Darlow effect, I'll call it. 8th, South Shields, a team I have actually watched. I watched them draw 0-0 with Ashton United last season at home, but it was full of fans, loads and loads and loads of fans for the level. Absolutely ridiculous. And I have a little soft spot for them because I managed to get a free ticket in, a free drink, and a free pint glass. So, yeah. But a club which also has a huge budget and are admittedly against much bigger fish now. And so aren't the big fish in a small pond. I mean, look over COVID, they should have been promoted many a time, but curtailed seasons prevented that. However, just have a look at the squad, though. It instantly shows this heaps of quality, and ultimately I see them being strong contenders for the playoffs again. It's ultimately the inconsistency at the club with their occasional off days against some surprising opponents, which could cause a hiccup for subsequent promotions. I mean, I'm expecting them to lose against some teams further down the league, Farsley Celtic, or maybe Bradford. Oh no, Bradford's not in the league. Damn it. Blythe, or the teams lower down. 7th, Banbury United. The natural evolution for this club is to be challenging towards the top end of the table, and I think the rebuild thus far has been really quite impressive, with a good blend of youth and experience, really. I reckon they'll string a few decent results, causing a streak to end up in the playoffs, and ultimately it is where they see themselves in the future, whether it is this level or the level above, really. 6th, Brackley Town. They got the recruitment done early, but I think they have a good core and a mix of age, and also a very experienced manager who, with Telford, but was never quite a top-end manager, hence why they won't really be in the top 3. But playoffs, comfortably. Yep. 5th, Spennymoor Town. Spennymoor started poor last season. However, they picked up form towards the second half of the season, so much so that they're challenging for the playoffs come the end. And they do have a new manager, which will need to implement a better style of play, but I reckon they're progressing very well so far. And I reckon the first half, for the first little bit of the season, they'll actually hit the ball running, and that's what will carry them into the playoffs this time. 4th, Kingsland Town. They are clearly one of the best teams in this league. However, I am basing this on the mentality of just missing out on the title will lead to a little bit of a sluggish start, nothing huge really. Mark Hughes doesn't have much experience as a first team manager, so it would take him a little while to find his feet, but comfortably a playoff position. 3rd, Hereford. Hard one to brick for Hereford, really, and I think 3rd is absolutely ridiculous, saying where they finished last season, but they have a completely new squad. And look at some of the signings they're bringing in. They're bringing some very strong players in, and the squad reset really could be enough to reach a very healthy playoff position. You never know. Sometimes a reset of the big reset button is all you really need, and then you're suddenly at completely the opposite end of the table. Either way, you could be originally challenging for playoffs and just missed out, and then have a huge reset and then bomb down to relegation form, or you could be lower mid-table mediocrity and have a reset, and as I predicted with Hereford, be challenging towards the very top end echelons of the league. 2nd, Scunthorpe United. Although the club has been in free fall for the last few years, there is finally some financial stability come to the club with a new owner who has come in and created this greater stability. He had stability and success at Ilkeston Town and left them in a very healthy position. And Jimmy Smith is also a manager who is probably one of the greatest non-league managers at the moment, I would say. He won 3 titles and 11 trophies during his time at Peterborough Sports, and was doing very well with them during the first half of the season when he was in charge of them in the National League North. So very similar things and good things for Scunny coming up. And finally, for National League North, the winner, if you've not found out already by the rest of them, is Chester. For me, Callum McIntyre was the manager of the season for the National League North last season. I saw plenty of signs last season that they could go on and dominate this league. They only had a few hiccups in the road last season, preventing them from being promoted. But this season, they've not done a radical overhaul, and that team spirit from last season, I think that will cause some promotion. On to the southern end of the National League South here, and 24th gone with Farnborough. Similar reasoning for Scarborough, really. The prediction there is that they really overachieved last season, and this National League South is much stronger this season. They also don't have a budget to compete in this league, with issues behind the scenes not noticed by many, really. The manager seems to be complaining a lot about the money for the club, but this is also a long-term manager, so I do reckon a change might be needed behind the scenes. They also definitely don't score enough goals. 23rd, Aveley. Let me know in the comments below. I'm going to go with Aveley. But they were predicted for relegation from the Isthmian League last season, but ended up being promoted. But let's face it, that underdog mentality can only really take you so far. Like everyone said Turkey was going to do really well in the Euros because of how their underdog mentality took them to the qualification of the Euros last time around, but then they had an awful campaign. And I don't really think the squad is anywhere near National League South standard, so they will be relegated. 22nd, Taunton Town. I was amazed how well we did last season, but some of their players are coming back from 4-month bans, and that has got to take a toll on the team cohesion and trustworthiness. Like, if I saw one of my teammates punished for betting, then I'd question whether he has the team's results in mind. Like, oh, maybe he has a bet that there's 20 corners, and therefore, instead of shooting in towards goal in mind, he'll shoot towards the goalkeeper just so they tip it over the bar. This psychological concern will affect the whole squad, no doubt, and I think it will cause a dip in results, meaning I'm predicting relegation ultimately. 21st, Havant Waterlooville. Jamie Collins is an inexperienced manager, so Havant and Waterlooville are a bit of a wild card prediction coming into this season. I don't think they've improved vastly, whereas other teams have. And ultimately, they gave up the playoff height when Collins came in, and that negativity only leads in one direction. Down, down, and down. 20th, Maidstone United. The woefulness of the Stones last season was so bad that it could continue this season, to be honest. They also seem to be sticking with Elo Kobe, who has a win percentage of just 4.55%. I don't think I need to iterate how bad of a manager you must be to only get one win in 22 and 9 points out of a total 66 on offer. Awful. What that tells me is that they're really in for another rocky ride until they root out all the problems with the squad. Just look at the defence for last season. They conceded 104 goals. The difference between the two leagues as well isn't that huge. You just need to look at Dover last season. 19th, Yeovil Town. I still can't believe that I'm even considering this as a possibility, because it actually feels very credible to me, even though we're like challenging always towards the championship a few years ago, weren't they? But at the present, look at them. New owners have come in, admittedly, but I think that's only enough to stop the free fall. You know, you're not going to instantly turn around sinking ship. You got to stabilize it and then turn it around. And so at the moment, it'll be a bit of a lack of consistency, I think, will become apparent. There's lots of new players coming in and managers coming through a revolving door, really. Last season, they had the second most amount of players lost in the National League and were still dismal. They also need to get rid of a huge scale of these players and bring in some local players who actually want to play for the club. Hence why I think they will continue to struggle this season. 18th, Chippenham Town. I read in the local press that Horgan was giving everyone a clean sheet and were signing people not on reputation and allowing academy players a chance. Sounds great. Sounds good. Yep. But every single academy player will put in 100% in if they're given a chance to. I mean, academy players are always trying their very best. But that doesn't mean they have the ability. And certainly not every single one of them. And there's a reason players have a reputation, and that is normally what generates success, not any old player. I therefore think the whole transfer strategy is wrong, so it won't be as good as previous seasons. 17th, Bath City. In 2021-22, they finished 18th last season. Was an improvement in 11th, but they are really a lower mid-table squad. They may have a decent budget for the league, but they aren't really capable of pushing onto anything this season. I also don't see the ambition to do so, hence a bit of mid-table mediocrity for me. 16th, Dover Athletic. Poor ownership, too young a manager, 3 players signed only to leave again, the assistant manager has walked out. Have I covered everything? This club is in a total disarray right now. And I reckon most are saying that these are nailed on 24th relegation bin, nothing. They're going to lose every game, whatever. However, with any form of adversity comes galvanisation. It's a frequent occurrence throughout the pyramid. Look at Derby a few seasons ago when we had that minus 21 points deduction. Look at literally any team who has been docked points or in a perilous position, and suddenly they all gather together and say, we're not going to listen to what the manager says, we're just going to put at best for the club on the pitch. And I believe in the ability of the squad will overcome the issues. And it's not going to be a ridiculous season. 16th, though. 15th, Hemel Hempstead Town. Stereotypically mid-table side, really, aren't they? They are really a side who always shows glimpses of potential, and they could reach to mount a promotion challenge. But ultimately, these are just too few and far between, sorry. So they could end up in floating mid-table for the whole season, really. 40, Weston-super-Mare. A team with experience of this league, which will really quite hold them in good stead coming into this the following campaign coming up. They are also likely to have a club record number of fans this season, considering they've already broke the season ticket record for the club ever. Their positive brand of football will be very effective in this league, and an exciting 14th, I think, is where they'll end up. 13th, Braintree Town. If you get into the playoffs, you at least have to put some form of effort into wanting to get promoted. This was not the case with the 125-year-old club, who seemed to want to stay in this league with one of the most abject performances in the playoffs I've seen in a while, if not ever. If that performance is replicated during this season, then they'll finish mid-table, if not lower. 12th, Truro City. Another team with National League South experience, and they do have a fairly large fan base, gathering people from around Cornwall to watch them. The owner has not completely blown a hole in their budget as well, with building a 10,000-seater stadium. Anyone getting Darlington flashbacks with this guy, really? Only me? Must not be, really. Instead, they can now focus on pitch and an improvement on a smaller and more reasonable stadium, now at a capacity predicted around 3,000, with room for more seats. Therefore, with a shift in focus, there will be much more rewards and secure a second season at step 2. 11th, Slough Town. I always saw the Rebels as more of a mid-table challenger for playoffs type of team. So last season must have come as a bit of a disappointment for the fans, really. They also have a whole new challenge in ownership, with people who have a combined almost 50 years worth of non-league experience taking hold of the club. I don't know what the future holds for Slough, but it appears exciting times, and some of the transfers are much more than relegation fighters this time round. 10th, Eastbourne Borough. From one team with new owners to another. The change in badge has certainly caused much controversy within the fan base, and I get the anger at the change of colours, but I personally think that new crest is much nicer. So yeah. But that has nothing to do with the performance on the ball. The team has a new manager with Mark Beard, who will take this season to implement his ideas, but his style of play is high tempo and exciting to watch, and this is certainly a team to keep your eye on the next few years. Now, we'll say they're just missing out on the playoffs. 9th, Welling United. What a few years does in football, Danny Blore has now been appointed manager. A manager I rate very highly. He's honest and knows where the club needs to improve. As he said, Rome wasn't built in a day in one of his latest interviews. But every season, this club seems to improve, and it seems after hitting rock bottom, really, a couple of seasons back in 21st, were they, when there was only one team relegated. Blore, for me, has the CV to get this team fighting at the right end of the table. So we'll see if his words can be translated into actions, really. 8th, St Albans City. A team which has always been there or thereabouts in the playoff picture. I don't envisage too much different this season. David Noble, despite still being quite inexperienced, seems to know how to get the best out of his team. But as I keep coming back to, this league is a tough one this season, a really hard nut to crack. And that's why the playoffs will just evade them this time round. 7th, Hampton and Richmond Borough. I think to a neutral eye, one can see progression in this club. Not in ridiculously revolutionary speed like Wrexham, but season by season they temper a little, improve. Therefore, I reckon they'll have enough time this time round just to scrape into playoffs. But this could equally be just when I wrote down my notes at 1:15 in the morning and went completely doolally. We'll see. 6th, Tonbridge Angels. Another team who seems to make small baby steps in improving, or should I say, cherubim steps, seeming they are the Angels, and the fans will be flying over the moon having reached the playoffs. Okay, I'll stop the puns now. I get it. A look at their manager, Jay Saunders. They are instantly onto a winner because he took Maidstone from Tier 8 to Tier 5 in just 4 seasons. Therefore, along with some very good signings, I imagine Tonbridge will be challenging at the upper end of the table. 5th, Weymouth. Sometimes you need to plunge to rock bottom to realise that you need to start swimming. I think the Terrors certainly were at that stage last season when they were really quite lucky to escape a drop. They've already recruited heavily, bringing in 13 players, all of a good age, to be fair, in their mid-20s. And also, the style they survived on the last day will live long in the memory of the fans. I reckon that firework was really needed to rocket them up into the playoffs and really challenging up to where they belong. I remember them in the National League for itself not that long ago. 4th, Torquay United. I know they also had an awful season last year, but Torquay were much more competitive, and they really don't seem so disorganised behind the scenes as some of the other teams who've come now. They also have a very strong attack, scoring 58 goals, and they have improved in defence so far this window. This means their strategy is effective, and come the end of the season, they'll be firmly within the playoff picture. 3rd, Chelmsford City. From other people I've seen, Chelmsford look very likely to win the title, or at least finish in the playoffs, so it seemed a safe bet to follow these people and predict them to finish a healthy 3rd. And I'm probably going to say they'll win the playoffs comfortably this season. They also narrowly lost the playoffs last season, and it wasn't a considerable sucker punch that would affect this season. It was only by a narrow 1-0. Robbie Simpson knows how to get into the playoffs. Ultimately, time will tell if he can do better and get out the league. 2nd, Worthing. This team is on an upwards trajectory, and it's hard to tell where they'll stop, really. Adam Hinshelwood seems to be a born winner, and this side has retained the core of their playoff finishing team from last year. Former manager Gary Elphick has recently also won a promotion to the Isthmian League with Hastings United, and also joined creating a backroom staff with such a winning mentality. And finally, the top of the league, I've got Dartford. Almost predictably so. The Darts are going to win this league by a landslide. It was very cruel of them not to be promoted last season, but just look at Ebbsfleet's ridiculous run of form that meant they couldn't be caught up, really, and playoffs just didn't end up in the right way. But I do think Ebbsfleet's story from last season deserves way more attention as well. Of course, for Wrexham, Notts County title race did take a bit more precedence in the media, but Dartford were in a title race for the majority of the season, and with no serious competition from other teams, I reckon Dartford will dominate this league and gain promotion. So there were some quite wacky predictions out there, but I think mainly I was playing it safe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Please subscribe if you're new around here. And we'll do the National League ones in a few days' time, depending when I'm finished predicting them. Goodbye for now, though.